Hi, folks. My name is Maria Schell, and I live in Anchorage, Alaska. And I am super happy to have my quilt, Some and Parts, be a part of Quilt National 2021. Some and Parts is part of a larger series called Color Grids, and I've been working on that series for almost a decade. It is really a deep dive into the traditional quilt block called crossed square. It's also related to the simple cross block, and it's also related to the quarter log cabin, which is also sometimes called the housetop block. So all of those components and I would say sashing as well. So I am manipulating the crossed square block, the cross block, the quarter log cabin, and sashing. So I kind of play and combine those things in different configurations to get different quilts. And it is kind of amazing because, and if you've ever worked in a series, you probably know this, but each quilt sort of builds on and leads to the next quilt. And you think, my goodness, I've been making this same quilt for 10 years, but I still haven't run out of ideas. So if we look back here, which are some of my latest ideas, that is right there is an example of what I would call the cross square block. And it has the quarter log cabin units in the corners, and then it has sashing. And I will manipulate those two elements to get different results. Some and Parts is really an evolution of a quilt that started out as, well, it's a quilt that's called Treasure Map. And Treasure Map has two components to it. One is the grid or the sashing. And in the sashing, I made very tiny little cross square blocks, about 1.25 inches big. And then in the four corners, I put 4 cross square blocks. Actually, they're not cross square blocks. They would be considered cross blocks in the corner. So there were 16 of those, 4 in each corner. And the quilt measures about 30 by 30. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. And I thought, I'm not really done with that. So I took the sashing and I made a large quilt that was composed entirely of these little teeny crossed blocks. And that quilt was in Quilt National 2015. And then now Some and Parts is in 2021. And it is really taking the background or the corner blocks and manipulating them. So each one of the blocks in Some and Parts is individually cut and pieced, and it has a different grid. And I want to say there are 54 blocks in the quilt. Maybe I'm wrong. Sometimes say 56 blocks in the quilt. And I could be wrong about that. Maybe it's 49. Anyway, it is a bunch of blocks, and each one of those blocks is different. And that was kind of the goal of it, is like, can you take the same thing and make it different over and over and over again, but then get them all to fit together in a grid? So I'm kind of fascinated with that, like working without rulers, but getting things to fit together on a grid. It's fun. I like doing it. And that is really what Some and Parts is. So the name kind of says it all. It is a bunch of parts that together, I hope, are a sum that is bigger than just the parts. I am not done with this series. I think that I'll be doing some more quilts. In fact, you can see right here on the design wall, there are more quilts happening. So a little bit of my history as a quilt maker. I started making quilts in 2001. So it's been 20 years. We moved to Valdez, Alaska, which is a remote Alaskan village. And there's a little quilt shop there. And I've always sewn, but I'd never made a quilt. And it was calling me. I went into the shop, I signed up for my first class, and that process led me from one quilt to the next quilt. And it led me towards a life of teaching and exhibiting and sharing my work. It led me to community quilt building and just a lot of really amazing things. If you're listening to this video, I think you probably already agree with me that quilts are amazing, and to be part of this community, and especially to be part of Quilt National, is pretty dang special. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the exhibition, and thanks for your support.